Not every plant that pairs beautifully with your roses in October belongs in your garden. Some are perfectly safe, some just need a little management. And one of the most popular fall companion plants sold at garden centers right now is actually banned in several states. Today I'm sorting fall rose companions into three honest categories: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you know exactly what you're planting before you plant it, and not months later when it's already spreading somewhere you can't easily fix. Let's get into it. Good, bad, or invasive, what those words actually mean. Here's a myth worth clearing up before we go any further. A lot of gardeners assume that if a plant spreads on its own without you replanting it, that automatically makes it invasive. That's not actually true, and mixing those two things up causes real problems in both directions. A plant is simply vigorous, or a spreader if it expands within your own garden. It might need dividing every few years or a root barrier to stay in its lane, but it stays where you put it, more or less. A plant is invasive if it escapes cultivation entirely, spreads into wild spaces through seed or root fragments, and outcompetes the native plants already growing there. That's a completely different category, and it's often the one with a legal definition attached, not just a gardening opinion. That distinction matters because it cuts both ways. Gardeners scare themselves away from genuinely wonderful, vigorous plants because the word spreads sounds alarming. And at the same time, plenty of people walk out of a garden center with a genuinely invasive plant in their cart because it was sitting right there on the shelf with a cheerful tag and no warning label at all. Today's list sorts through both problems. There's actually a useful mental shortcut here. Ask yourself where the plant's offspring end up. A vigorous spreader's new growth stays within a few feet of the original plant. You can walk the border and see exactly where it's headed. An invasive plant's offspring can travel much farther, carried by wind, water, or wildlife, into places you can't monitor. That's the real dividing line, more than how fast something grows in your own bed. The good. Three companions that behave themselves. Let's start with the safe picks. Three fall companions that stay exactly where you put them. First, asters. They bloom right as most roses are winding down for the season. They're genuinely one of the best late-season food sources for pollinators. And they grow in clumps rather than spreading underground. So a single plant stays a single plant. Second, amsonia, sometimes sold as threadleaf blue star. It doesn't spread at all, strictly clump forming, and its fine, feathery foliage turns a glowing gold in fall. Genuinely one of the best fall colors of any perennial. It also adds a soft, airy texture a rose bed usually doesn't have on its own. Third, sedum, sometimes labeled hylotelephium on newer tags, particularly the autumn joy variety. It's drought tolerant, blooms right through fall, and its thick, succulent structure gives you a completely different texture than anything else in the bed. None of these three will ever require you to have the invasive species conversation. Plant them, enjoy them, done. Timing-wise, in zone 5 to 6, the ideal window to add any of these three is early to mid-fall, giving roots several weeks to establish before the ground freezes. Warmer zone 7 to 8 gardeners have more runway and can push planting later into fall. Colder zone 3 to 4 should aim earlier, and southern hemisphere gardeners shift to your own fall, March into April. One more reason this trio works so well specifically alongside roses. All three peak and bloom right as most repeat blooming roses are entering their final flush of the season, which means your bed doesn't hit a dead patch in September and October the way an all rose planting often does. They're not just safe, they're doing real seasonal work, carrying color and pollinator interest through exactly the weeks your roses need the visual support most. The bad Japanese anemone. Now the bad, and I want to be precise about what bad means here because it's not a warning to avoid this plant. Japanese anemone spreads by underground rhizomes, and in rich, consistently moist soil, it can spread aggressively, sometimes surprising gardeners who didn't expect one small nursery pot to become a 4-foot patch within a couple of seasons. But here's the case for it anyway. It's genuinely one of the most beautiful fall bloomers you can grow, with tall, airy stems and pale pink or white flowers that hover above the foliage right when your roses need the visual support most. It's also deer-resistant, which is a real advantage if that's a problem in your area. The honest answer is that Japanese anemone belongs in the bad category, not the ugly one. It needs management, not avoidance. A root barrier sunk a foot or so into the soil around the planting area keeps it contained, and dividing it every few years if it does start pushing past its boundary takes care of the rest. Give it a spot where a little spread is actually welcome, and it earns its place. Worth knowing before you plant. How aggressively it spreads depends heavily on your soil. In consistently moist, rich soil, expect real vigor and plan for it from day one. In leaner or drier soil, the spread slows down considerably, sometimes staying almost clump-like for years. That's not a guarantee, but it's a real factor. The same variety can behave differently in two gardens just miles apart, which is exactly why it lands in bad rather than a fixed category. Managing a spreader responsibly. If you're planting anything from the bad category, a few habits make the difference between a manageable spreader and a plant that's taken over the whole bed by year 3. Install a physical root barrier at planting time, not after you notice a problem. It's a 15-minute job when the bed is freshly dug, and a much bigger one once roots have already spread past where you want them. Walk the edges of that planting area once a season and pull anything that's crossed the line while it's still small and easy to remove. And if a spreader does need dividing, do it in early spring before new growth really takes off, which is also the best time to share the extras with another gardener instead of letting them go to waste. Just make sure you pass along the context about its spreading habit along with the plant itself. If sorting this out is saving you a return trip to the garden center, A-like helps this reach more gardeners before they buy. Back to it. The ugly, the fall favorite that's banned in several states. Here's the one that surprises people most. Burning bush is sold at nearly every garden center every fall, prized for foliage that turns an almost unbelievable glowing red. It's marketed constantly as a companion and hedge plant, often right alongside the roses. And it's classified as invasive, banned, or restricted for sale in several states, including Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut, with more states actively reviewing it. Here's the mechanism. Birds eat the berries and spread the seeds into wild spaces, where the plant forms dense thickets that shade out native undergrowth and tree seedlings. It doesn't stay in your yard the way a rhizome-spreading perennial does. It escapes through seed, carried well beyond your property line by wildlife you have no control over. The frustrating part is that it's still legal to sell in plenty of places, sitting on a shelf with no warning label at all, right next to genuinely safe plants. If you want that same brilliant red fall color without the ecological cost, native alternatives like Virginia sweetspire or a native viburnum give you comparable foliage color without escaping into the landscape around you. This is exactly the pattern worth watching for with any fall color shrub, not just this one. Anything that produces berries birds will actually eat carries some risk of this kind of unplanned spread, which is part of why the 2-minute check matters more for shrubs than for most clump-forming perennials. A rhizome-spreading perennial is limited by how far its own roots reach. A berry-producing shrub is limited by how far a bird decides to fly. What not to do. A few habits worth breaking and one worth building in their place. Do not assume that because a big box store or garden center sells something, it's automatically safe. Invasive species regulations vary enormously by state, and plenty of nurseries stock whatever sells regardless of regional restrictions. Here's the habit to build instead, and it takes about 2 minutes. Before anything new goes in your cart, search your state's invasive plant council or extension office list, along with the plant's actual botanical name, not just the common name, since common names vary and sometimes get reused for completely different species. If it shows up on that list or on a regional watch list, even if it's not formally banned yet, skip it, no matter how good it looks in the photo. If it doesn't show up at all, you're almost certainly looking at something safe, and you can plant with confidence. Do this standing in the nursery aisle before you load it into the cart. Once seeds have had a season to spread, there's no undoing that part. Bookmark your state's list once you find it too, since regulations do get updated, and a plant that was fine to sell 5 years ago can end up restricted today. This one habit alone catches the majority of surprises before they ever reach your garden, which is exactly why it belongs folded into the buying decision, not as a separate step you might skip when you're in a hurry. 2 more habits worth breaking. Do not plant anything from the bad or ugly category right up against a wooded edge, a creek, or any natural area without a serious containment plan. That's exactly the kind of location where an escape actually happens, since seeds and root fragments have a direct path into ground nobody's managing. And do not pass along a division or a cutting of anything from the bad category to a fellow gardener without mentioning that it spreads. A well meaning gift of Japanese anemone, handed over without that context, is exactly how a manageable plant becomes an unmanaged 1-3 properties down the street. None of these habits take more than a few minutes, and none of them ask you to give up on companion planting altogether. They just move the decision earlier, back to the nursery aisle while you still have a choice, rather than a season or two later when the choice has already been made for you. The good behaves itself completely. The bad just needs a little management. And the ugly can look absolutely stunning while quietly causing real damage somewhere you'll never see it. Asters, amsonia, and sedum for the safe picks. Japanese anemone if you're willing to manage a spreader for a genuinely gorgeous fall bloom. And skip burning bush entirely, no matter how good that red looks in October. Run the 2-minute check on anything new before it goes in your cart, and you'll never plant a surprise in your own bed or anywhere downstream of it. If this changed how you'll shop for companions this fall, hit like and subscribe for the rest of this system. Until next time, happy gardening.